And welcome back to WomenMoneyEmpower.com. I'm Kathy DeWitt Dunn, and while I'm very excited, I have a very special guest, Rick Robertson with Kuntz Fuller. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Rick. He's been selected one of the top 50 attorneys in Texas. He's been nominated a super lawyer for 10 consecutive years and awarded the best go-to lawyer for Texas Lawyers Go-To Guide. He represents very high net worth clients, and most of his clients are in the sports related industry, celebrities, etc. But he's got a lot of great information for people that are thinking about divorce or, maybe going through a divorce now. And Rick, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, Kathy.
And I'm glad to have you here because, one of the interesting statistics about divorce here recently is 50% of all marriages end in divorce.
And that's a shame. It's a shame that so many marriages end up in divorce. And I always was of the opinion when I first started practicing divorce law that those statistics were things that we ought to try to improve on and reduce the percentage of people that end up getting divorced. I found, however, after practicing divorce for a few years, that some people really do make the wrong decision with the spouse that they marry, and they are much happier, much better off, and frequently the kids are in much happier places sometimes because of a divorce.
So there's a lot of people out there today thinking, maybe I'm going through a personal trying time myself. I'm thinking about getting a divorce. What are some of the things they need to be thinking about, Rick?
Well, of course, we would not wish divorces on anyone, but planning is critical, just like in any other endeavor. So if you're thinking about a divorce or if there is a possibility that your spouse may want a divorce, information is power, just like in any other industry. The more you know about your financial situation, the more you know about options that may be available to you, the better prepared you will be to get through the difficult, emotional, and frequently trying process of a divorce itself.
You've seen a lot of different things in your time, and how do people really get prepared financially for a divorce behind the scenes?
Simple things like gathering copies of income tax returns, copies of bank statements, copies of brokerage statements, copies of real estate closings and transactions, just gathering some of that information so that you can go in prepared and have a better idea of what your finances are is the best defense as well as the best offense.
Maybe you've got, a lot of homework to do, but just think about how much money that could mean to you later down the road.
You're absolutely right. It can be overwhelming to think about trying to gather all the documents and to make them available for scanning, for printing, for copying, things of that nature. But in most average cases, people will have one or more bank accounts. People will have one or more investment accounts. They may own their home and perhaps a vacation property. They will have automobiles, maybe a boat, maybe a motorcycle for all the Harley riders that are out there. And if you can gather that information and put it together, you're going to be in a much better position to plan for your future, and especially gathering information about retirement accounts, since so many people have tried to maximize their retirement savings in order to provide for a more secure future.
And that's a great point. One of the things that I always hear with a lot of people that come into my practice is they think automatically the division of assets is going to be 50-50 because it's a community property estate. What do you say to that?
I say that's one of the biggest misconceptions about Texas law. Texas is one of those community property states that enable the judge to divide property other than 50-50. So it's possible in Texas for a judge to award 60% of the community property estate to one party, sometimes even more. Those are factors that people don't always realize that they have to take into consideration and that may make a difference in the type of evidence that they gather and prepare for their case.
And that's also why it's so good to have a financial partner behind the scenes working with a law firm to help people gather the assets and to take a look short term, medium term, and long term into the future to make sure that you get an equitable distribution, but you have to be realistic when you're going through a divorce.
You do have to be realistic, and I love your use of the term an equitable distribution because that's precisely the way that the judges observe and look at it. And judges have a great deal of discretion when they divide community assets, and if they're going to divide it other than 50-50, they have to have a good reason to do so. But the misconceptions that so many people think are that if my spouse has had an affair, that I'm always going to get 100% of the estate,
I hear
or
that.
90% of the estate, or 80% of the estate. And that's just not necessarily true. Most judges will tell you that the reasons that they divide property unequally are always going to be fact-driven, fact-specific, and are going to depend on what happens in that particular case. So it is important to plan. It's important to realize that both parties are going to have to take responsibility for their own financial welfare in the future.
You know, a lot of women are going through divorce right now. You don't know what your options are. You really haven't explored how you could gather all the assets and what that really means. And I think what we're trying to get across today is you need to be realistic. You need to have a plan. You need to have a great attorney by your side to kind of guide you and walk you through the process.
You know, it's interesting because I love to study the differences between each of the generations, Generation X, Generation Y. I'm one of the baby boomers myself, and when I meet with women of my generation, frequently they have a situation where the husband has been the primary breadwinner, where they have done a fabulous job of taking care of the house, of raising the children, and if a divorce happens at that point in time, they are totally unprepared to go into the workplace. They're
Right.
totally unprepared to have to redefine themselves and redefine their lives. And under those circumstances, meeting with a certified financial professional that can help them understand what their estate is, that can help them understand what options they may have in the future, that can help them chart a course for their financial success is an important step.
If you'd like to get some information today and contact us, feel free to give us a call. You could reach us live at 972-473-4700. I'm Kathy DeWitt Dunn. We'll be right back.